Hey, what's up guys, I'm Joe, and this cedar is about to be a Bradford fence. All right, so today's video is going to be all about wood, and you may or may not want to know, or you should know, about the differences when you're choosing wood for your fence. And so we're going to go through specifically about this cedar and why you would ever choose cedar versus the typical pine fence. Okay, so, well, one, if you could smell this through the camera, it smells delightful. But yeah, so you got that the aroma of the cedar. It really is. It's awesome. Getting to work with the cedar is a great benefit of the smell. So this is a cedar picket. This is a Western red cedar. So there are actually, even within cedar, there are differences. So you do need to look. There are some, what they sell as like a Japanese cedar that is an import cedar and has had some history or issues of being less quality. It usually is cheaper. So you want to make sure that if you are looking at purchasing cedar or talking to a contractor about cedar, that they're not just using a generic term of cedar. That could mean Western red like this, which is domestic and very high quality, or like a Japanese or import cedar that could be good, but then also could be not so good. So just want to watch out for that. But I know in some of the past videos, we've gone through privacy fences, and a lot of what you see is like a pine, and that's a very common option and a common selection. So we do a ton of treated pine. It's a good, hardy, economical option. But the other most common upgrade is to do a cedar. So you can see here, and we'll show you on the framework, your post and your 2x4s, like you see here, are still a treated pine. But then our pickets are gonna be the Western red cedar, like you see here. Is that is that to see how many?
Showing you up.
Yeah. Yeah, at least I'll smell good doing it. All right, well, we're setting out our pickets. We got everything framed. But here, the cedar, man, you wouldn't believe it if you could feel how heavy this is. It's actually a little lighter than the pine, but I'm not feeling it that way right now. But yeah, so why would somebody choose to do cedar rather than pine? So there are some benefits and limitations of both the cedar and the pine. So with that, on the cedar, you've got, I guess the benefit of it is, we talked about the smell. So it's it's naturally rot and bug resistant. So compared to a pine where it's got that treatment in it, there's not a treatment put on this. It's just the natural aspects of the wood that prevent it from rotting and deter bugs. But with that, like, so whenever you treat the pine pickets, there's quite a bit of moisture that gets pushed into that picket. With this, it's there's going to be some moisture, but a lot lower moisture content compared to the pine. But with that, this is still a natural product, so it's got wood grains and knots that you see. And so as that weathers and as that's out in the sun and rain and wind, it can move and cup and bow, but it's much less likely than the pine. So that's one of the biggest benefits, is that there's much less warpage and bowing compared to the pine. So I know that's a huge problem. You see fences that are left unmaintained and a lot of times not properly built that are warping and bowing all over the place. And so you get much less warping out of the cedar here. Okay, so that's the benefit of this cedar being more dimensionally stable, less moisture content, less warping. So with it, the cedar versus the pine, the cedar is going to be about 25 to 30% more on the upfront cost or investment for this, but the lifespans are going to be different. So a typical pine fence, now maintenance and staining can play into this and extend these timelines, but typically a pine lifespan, I mean, it could be as little as 8 years, probably 12 to 15 years. It's pretty typical on a pine fence. The cedar is going to be more in the probably 15 to 20, even more, again, depending on maintenance and staining and sealing. But you're gonna get typically a good 5 to 7 or more years out of the cedar than you would compared to the pine. So that's a major benefit. We talked about the warping. Also, with less moisture content, we've looked at on some of our other videos of the shrinkage and when you get gaps. This is gonna expand and contract with the weather some, but it's gonna be less than the pine. So in the pine, whenever you butt these pickets up together, which we always do on our privacy, you know, we start with that. On the pine, that can shrink up to be as much as, you know, a 1/4 inch gap. With the cedar, again, it's gonna shrink some, but it's gonna be much less. It's gonna be probably more closer to an 1/8 or so. So you will get a little bit more privacy and less shrinkage with the cedar as well. So that is another benefit of it. I guess on the converse side, the benefits of the pine. So the pine is a little bit more dense, so it's a little bit heavier of a wood. So the pine would technically take like an impact better without breaking or splintering. The cedar is going to be a softer wood, a little bit lighter. So if there was some kind of instance or that was a big need of it being more impact resistant, then that would be a case potentially that the pine would outperform the cedar. But yeah, so both are good options depending on the budget. I know, like myself personally, the house that we're in right now, we built the fence 7 years ago, and I would have preferred to have the pine, but just our budget at that time, all I could swing was, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I would have preferred to have the cedar, but at the time, all our budget I could swing was pine. And so it does depend. It depends on the budget. It depends on the time frame that you may be at the house. But if you're going to be there a while and it's something that you're wanting to invest in the longer lasting option, the cedar does really well. And man, it looks good too. Just another added benefit. But all right, so we talked about the longevity and the shrinkage versus the cedar and the pine, but also just the aging and what to expect with the cedar. I mean, obviously it starts out this beautiful cedar color, and man, you can't beat that. But both the cedar and the pine, if you just leave them without any kind of stain or seal, they are naturally gonna gray in the sun. So it's gonna start to, over years, turn to that kind of patina gray color. And that comes from the sun exposure. It's specifically the UV rays in the sun. So to either preserve this cedar color or keep it from graying, you would want to put some kind of UV inhibitor sealant, or preferably like a stain that has a pigment in it, a little bit of color that's going to block those UV rays and going to preserve a consistent color and prevent it from graying if that's a concern with both either the cedar or the pine. That would be kind of a breakdown of the cedar versus pine and why someone may elect to go with the cedar fence here. Hey guys, thanks for checking out our cedar fence with us today. I hope that was helpful. Make sure and like this video. It helps us out a ton, and subscribe to the channel for more fences just like this.